Hello everyone, this is going to be our IntelliJ plus Java JDK setup guide. If you are a random internet stranger, welcome. I hope my guide helps you. However, this is really intended for my AP Computer Science principals and AP Computer Science A students. So keep that in mind as we're walking through that. And without further ado, let's hop in. I have these accompanying slides with images and links and that sort of thing. This will be available in the description below, but it's not really necessary. So we're going to click in. So some background information starting out. We'll download these two things. Again, there are two things to get, the IntelliJ as well as the Java JDK. We'll actually walk through an install and then we'll create a project. So I have uninstalled IntelliJ in order to be on the same page as you. If you already have IntelliJ installed, I am 90% sure there's an upgrade option for you to get the latest version. However, you can, of course, just like me, uninstall it and then go get the new version. What is IntelliJ? IntelliJ is an IDE. That stands for Integrated Development Environment. You don't need to know that. The way I like to think about it is if you want to write an essay, you could handwrite it. You could use Notepad. Right? We could use Notepad in order to write our essays. That would be insane. There is no spell check here. Okay? Nobody would do that. Instead, we use a more advanced word processor, something like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, whatever's available to you. The same is with Java code. We could use Notepad to write Java code. Don't do that. Instead, get something a lot more advanced, something like IntelliJ, an integrated development environment. IntelliJ itself is open source. Great word. It means it's free. Cross-platform, meaning it can work on Windows machines. It could work on Macs. It could work on Linux. Industrial level, meaning that it's going to have lots of features. I highly, highly recommend this software if you are going to write Java code. In order to install IntelliJ, we need to download it. It's owned by a company called JetBrains. You can go through their website. This is a link to get to it, but what I really recommend is let's just search for it. Let me close out some of these tabs. So I'm just going to search. I want to do download IntelliJ. Very first link here is the JetBrains website. I'm going to click on that. Okay, we get to this page. There's going to be some links right here that we're going to get to in just a moment, but notice that I have the Windows already selected by default. If you're a Mac user, you want to switch to Mac. If you're a Linux user, you probably shouldn't be watching this video, but you can switch to Linux. So back on the Windows, I am using a Windows machine for this. You see there's two versions. There's the Ultimate, which is a enterprise, industrial level. There's extra features that aren't really necessary for what we're doing. So what I'm going to get instead is the community version. I'm going to hit this download button right here, and that's going to download IntelliJ. I'm going to tell it to save, and your browser is likely putting that into a downloads folder. While that downloads, I'm going to go ahead and get a hold of the other piece of software that we need, and that is the Java JDK. Just like with IntelliJ, I'm going to search download Java JDK. There will be links in the slides, but again, just Google it. I mean, what if my link doesn't work anymore? What if it goes to like an old website? Just Google it. So Oracle is the company that currently owns Java. I'm going to click on that very first link. Effectively, we're going to get Java 14. As of this recording, we're on Java 14. As long as you have 7 or higher, you're good for AP Computer Science A. I recommend at least 8 or higher. And as always, it's not going to hurt to get just the newest version. Okay? So over here, Oracle JDK, we'll hit the JDK download button. So that's going to download. Again, that's going to go to a downloads folder. Now I have these downloaded from before. All right, there's the second copy of the IntelliJ, and the JDK is like still downloaded. Anyway, I highly recommend, these are the two programs that we need. I highly recommend installing the JDK first. We'll see why in just a moment. I'm going to delete this IntelliJ download while we're at it. So these are the two programs. Now, I have the JDK already installed. It's going to ask me, do I want to reinstall it for this video? Yeah. So I'm going to hit yes. You likely don't have that prompt because this may be your first time installing the JDK. It's going to take us through the installation wizard here. We're going to go next. Okay. Here it's showing us the folder that's going to install into. You could change that. I don't recommend it. In fact, what I'm actually going to do while I'm here is do a print screen by hitting Alt, print screen. You could write this down, whatever. This may be relevant to you in just a moment. And I'm going to paste this into Paint. You shouldn't have to do that. We'll see what I'm talking about in just a moment, but you shouldn't have to. If you're just overly cautious, go ahead and document where this is going. Okay, we'll go next. Not only is this going to copy the JDK software to your machine, it's going to tell Windows or your operating system, Mac, Linux, that you do have it installed. Now, you may be thinking, I already have Java. What you likely have is the Java runtime environment, which is used for executing Java programs. The Java Development Kit, JDK, is for developing programs, hence the D. It is for writing Java code. We were successful in our installation, so we're going to hit close. Again, out of these two programs, I would install the JDK first, but we are now ready to install IntelliJ. So I'm going to double click this installation wizard. We're going to go next. Here is the folder where this stuff is going to be installed. C drive, program files. This is less important to keep track of. You could change it if you want to. I don't recommend that because when it comes to like error shooting, like problem solving, being on the same page as most humans on the internet helps. This does take a gig of space, maybe of note, but I'm going to hit the next button. It's going to ask for some installation options. A lot of these are taster's choice, like do you want a desktop shortcut? Yeah, sure, we'll do that. And do you want to create an association? Well, I'm going to be doing .java files, so sure. I'm going to hit those two checkboxes. Most of these are just not super important. We'll hit next. And then lastly, install. Okay, this is going to take a couple of minutes to actually go through the install. But as soon as that is finished, we'll launch IntelliJ and we'll actually create our very first project to make sure that our JDK is installed successfully and that IntelliJ is working properly. I mean, it is a gig. Yay! All right, so we're finished. It was successful. I'm going to hit this checkbox here to go ahead and launch it. And we'll hit finish. Okay, first thing it's going to ask me is, do I want to import settings? Now, I don't really have any settings to give you. We'll actually go in and edit some settings ourselves. But in the platform, it's actually kind of simple and easy to export your settings, and so you can either use them on a different machine or give them to somebody else. But as it stands right now, I don't have anything for you. We'll just not import anything. Okay, very important screen here for a lot of people. It's going to ask what UI theme do we want. Do you want the darker one that is cognizant of your vision and won't hurt your eyes, or do you not value your eyesight? I value my eyesight, so we're going to go with the Darkula over here on the left-hand side. I highly recommend going with this one for the aforementioned eyesight problems, but also this is what I'll be using. And so if you are comparing your code to mine, you want them to kind of match up as much as possible, because that's going to make it easier to find errors. So go with the dark theme. Now, I'm just going to skip the remaining like plugin options because they're just not relevant to us. You can get down in some nitty gritty. I don't recommend that. Let's just skip the remaining and set default. We've got our Darkula selected. That's the most important thing. Okay, now we're actually at the screen and we're ready to create our very first project. I'm going to hit this new project button. And it's going to bring up a very important screen. I installed the JDK first. And that means that up here where it says Project SDK, IntelliJ has already detected it, right? What it really did is it asked Windows, is the JDK installed? And Windows said, yeah, here it is. And that was part of what happened with the JDK setup process, and the reason we did that first. If this is red to you, then you need to actually go navigate to the JDK. You can hit this drop down and you can do add JDK. Right? It's going to bring up an Explorer. This is why I did this screenshot earlier. Right? I told you to make note of where Java is actually being installed. Maybe. By default, it's going into C drive, program files, Java, and there we see the JDK folder. Right? The exact same path. So if this was red, you can hit that drop down, you can navigate to this folder, and then once you have the folder highlighted, you can hit OK. Notice it gave me a second one because it had already selected it, but in theory, you should only have to do this once. Once you have the JDK selected, IntelliJ is going to kind of remember that, and so for future projects, whenever you make them and it asks, hey, what version of Java do you want to use? Well, this one, I've already selected it. Once you have that selected, you can hit next. I'm going to skip past this screen, just not important. And then it's going to ask us to name our project. Effectively, a project name is just a folder. I want to call this very first one Hello World. And notice that as I'm typing, it's creating a subfolder. That's very nice. Subfolders are going to help us keep our code very organized. Highly recommend it. If you don't like this actual location, you can hit the ellipses over here and then navigate to a location that you do like. But make sure that you have a subfolder because that's going to help you. Right? My project name, my subfolder, we're good to go. I'm going to hit finish. It's going to tell me that this folder, it doesn't exist. Do you want to create it? Yeah. So here we are. This is IntelliJ. Really a lot of the meat, tips. I'm going to tell it to not show tips anymore. I'm okay. You can leave those on if you want. But I'm going to, first thing, expand my Project Explorer, my Package Explorer, this pane over here by actually double-clicking on the Hello World text. And it brings this stuff up. I'm next going to expand my project folder. And probably the most important folder is this SRC folder. This is short for source code. Okay, this is where your Java files need to go. I'm going to right-click on the SRC. We're going to do a new Java class, and I'm going to name it. I'm going to name it Hello World. In this case, it matches my project folder, but it doesn't have to, right? This could be test. Actually, why don't we just roll with that? So I'm going to type in my name for my class, and you see that it actually is going to create that file, right? This is a test.java, and we see this text here. That may be a bit of a struggle for you to actually even see that text. So there's lots of options available. There's settings available, and I'm going to navigate to those now under File, Settings. Now, this is an industrial level IDE. I mean, it has so many features. It is highly editable. So they have this search function where you can basically narrow down what you're looking for. In this case, I'm interested in the size of the font. Excuse me, too much talking. And that narrowed down my search options a little bit. Here's what I'm looking for under Editor Font. You can change what actual font it is using. If you're a serial killer, you might be interested in Comic Sans. I'm going to leave it on JetBrains Mono, and I recommend you do the same. But most importantly is the size. 13 may be pretty good for you at home. I'm going to be demonstrating code to people, so I'm going to up this to, I don't know, like 32. Once you have what you like, you can hit apply, and that setting will now stick, and we have something that's a little bit more readable. Another important setting that I'm going to go ahead and change is this brace option. Okay, this is a very divisive topic when it comes to this convention, right? We're going to end up writing code here inside of the braces. About half the community is end of line brace, about half the community is next line brace. Okay, a lot of the code you're going to see, particularly in AP Computer Science A, is going to be next line brace, and so I try to be consistent with that. Now, I want to change my settings so that I don't have to bump this down every time, right? This is just one body. We're going to end up with multiple bodies, and I don't want to have to change that every time. That's actually a setting in IntelliJ. Again, I'm going to go to File, Settings, and this one's a little bit harder to find. Maybe we can type in brace. I'm just going to tell you how to get there manually, right? So under Editor, I'm going to collapse some of those. Under Editor, Code Style, right? Editor, Code Style, Java. Once you're in this sub menu, there are actually several little tabs here. What we're interested in is wrapping and braces. So I'm going to click that one. Again, this is under Editor, Code Style, Java. Wrapping and braces. And in the middle of this, we see brace placement. There are 4 categories, and they all say end of line at the moment. That text where it says end of line, I'm going to click that and tell it to do next line. Method declaration, I want that to be next line. Lambda declarations, we're never going to use those, but next line. And then other, who knows what's in that category, next line. I'm going to change those 4 topics, those 4 categories, to next line braces. What this is going to allow me to do is anytime I make a class declaration or a method declaration, the brace is going to end up on the next line. And I'll demonstrate that now. Right? I'm going to right click on my SRC, do a new Java class. I'm going to call this one Hello World. And immediately that brace is on the next line. Sweet. Final steps, let me actually program something so that I can test to make sure my JDK and IntelliJ are working as intended. I'm going to type out a main method. And I know I got some people right now that are screaming at their screen because they know short keys. Of note, no, don't worry about it. Here I've got my next line brace, and I'm going to type out something again. Lots of people going to be upset. They know short keys. I'm going to type out this print statement. Now I have something I'm actually ready to execute. The very first time that we're running this, I'm going to right click in free space and tell it to run hello world.main. It's going to take a moment to compile and run, but we're going to get a console down below, a new pane, where our output is actually going to show up. And if everything is working correctly, the phrase hello world will show up right here, and it did. This has been our IntelliJ plus Java JDK setup guide. Thanks for watching.